Hello folks, hope you're having a very good day. We are approaching the weekend where Christmas is, so I hope you got all your shopping done, I hope you're having a relaxing time. And if you're not, then, thank you for making the world go round, thank you for making sure we can have a really good time over this weekend, and making sure that, the world's spinning, the world keeps going round. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below, and right next to that is the notification bell. Hit that if you ever want to hear from me again, or you won't, as the case may be. Today is a huge video. It is the Black Legion video. It is one I've been planning for some time, and has been written for, shall we say, 2 to 3 weeks now, because I've had a lot of things to say about the Black Legion. Number one, we won't be doing Abaddon today, as I will talk to you about during the video. Abaddon's going to get his own video. He will be in this video, of course, because he is part of the Black Legion. He is the main man of the Black Legion. But he will be getting his own video over the next couple of weeks, so don't worry too much about that if he doesn't get too much of a mention in this one. So, without further ado, let's get to the Black Legion, shall we? So finally, we come to not just any Chaos Force, but the Chaos Force. A lot of things are thrown at the Warhammer 40,000 universe, and one of them is that it is completely devoid of villains. Well, villains that don't act like they're in a pantomime anyway. This video will not be totally in-depth so that we cover every aspect of the Black Legion. The subject is just far too vast. We will be covering how they work and how they don't work, what could change, and what could do with a rework. Abaddon, as I said, will be mentioned, but he is going to get his own video, as that guy is beyond the joke at this point, that it is kind of unreal. So, without further ado, as I said before, the Black Legion. So, as always, I will be separating this video into the good, the bad, and what I would change, with the good coming up first. So, a lot of the more troubling parts of the Black Legion were actually solved by the massive band-aid placed on their lore by Aaron Dembski-Bowden in his Black Legion trilogy. Something that he said was going to be a trilogy, but still isn't complete, because it's only had 2 books as far as I'm aware, which sucks. Get on that. Write the 3rd one. Those books really did an amazing job of telling us of the formation of the Black Legion and how they came about. I won't cover any more of it here, because I want you to go and read it for yourself. I just wanted you to know that I'm aware of it, and I would not change a thing about it. I love those books. They're really good. The tragedy of the Black Legion stems from their trauma. This is a legion of broken people, formed from a war that not only went against them in the Horus Heresy, but they are seen as the main instigators of. Worse, they were the first to flee the final battle after bringing the traitors to Terra to fight. That's right. Go look up if you don't believe me. They were the first ones to run away when Horus fell. Aside from the Blood Angels, I don't think any legion was as attached to their Primarch as the Lunar Wolves and later Sons of Horus were to Horus Lupercal. This attachment actually can be read as rather toxic and troubled in a way. I mean, think about it for a second. What would the Imperial Fists do if Dawn fell? The Imperial Fists. They'd fight on, wouldn't they? Determined to be worthy of his memory. The Night Lords? They'd probably throw a party, and many of them did when Kurz died. Vulcan died about 1,294 times, so the Salamanders had a lot of practice in that, I guess. The Ultramarines? They'd fight just like they did when Guilliman actually fell centuries later. The 2 legions most attached to their Primarchs are the Blood Angels and the Sons of Horus. And it just so happens that these 2 were the only 2 real people to bite the dust in the final Siege of Terra. So, this is the main reason the Black Legion are so delicious from a lore standpoint. The Blood Angels handled their loss by becoming enraged and redoubling their quest for vengeance in their grief. The Sons of Horus were so horrified that they fled with their father's body. And it's hard not to feel at least a little sympathy for them. The fact that one of these legions is called the Blood Angels, and not the Sons of the Angel, whilst the others is called the Sons of Horus, should point you to the toxic nature of their dependency on the invincibility of their father, Primarch and leader. An invincibility that once shattered, it shatters the psyche of an entire legion of warriors. So we come to it then. we come to the main driving force of why they're so interesting. In Black and Gold Reborn, it is an incredibly seductive thing to take ownership of one's failings and to return to fight again. This is what Abaddon does when he forms the Black Legion. Whilst in his own video we will go over the issues he faces from a lore standpoint, this is not one of them. Even as a Grey Knight player, I find it extremely hard to not root for Abaddon in his quest for a purpose for him and his warriors. Even if I think his overall aims and targets are nonsensical, which we will get into a little bit later on. The Black Legion moving forwards are an army in which you could literally do anything with, because they literally take anybody willing to fight for them and prove their worth. Whilst this does lead to some internal politicking and the like, it does also mean that the range of warriors at their disposal is kind of limitless. This is one of the main strengths of the good Chaos armies, in my opinion. The Black Legion and the Corsairs. Those are my two favourite Chaos armies. Mainly because they're so balanced. They are literally a legion because they have wiped away all dividing lines to create something new. Like a broken bone that has been reset, the Black Legion are a near limitless foil for the Imperium to throw themselves against. We hear that the Word Bearers are near enough the same strength as they were at the height of the Great Crusade, right now, which is just short of Ultramarine Original Legion size. That's massive. That is massive. That's like 300 to 400,000 Space Marines. And the Black Legion, so we are told, has 10 times that number. That's like a couple of million Marines. Where they get these Marines from, I don't know. How many of them are normal Marines and not vat-grown imperfect ones is a mystery, right? But still, their numbers show the no-stone unturned mentality of them when it comes to fighting wars. Again, we are literally told in the lore, that's not something I've made up, we are told in the lore that, yeah, whilst the Word Bearers are, you know, the biggest of the original legions, so Thousand Sons, Death Guard, you know, of the original traitor legions, they're the biggest. The Word Bearers. The Black Legion has 10 times that number. Don't ask me where they get those numbers from, but that's in the lore. That's there. It doesn't make any sense. Nope, it doesn't make any sense, but it's in the lore. I think that what they're trying to do is they're trying to show. For me, that goes overboard. I would have them being around 1 million Marines. You know, I would have them being around that. So around every Marine who isn't a part of those guys and isn't part of like a small war band somewhere is tied up in the Black Legion somehow. Essentially. Lastly, I'd like to touch on an often overlooked strength of the Black Legion. Their hatred of those who have fallen too far into the grasp of chaos. Rather than being tragic warriors who do not see how far they have fallen, which would also work, by the way, the Black Legion are instead warriors who see exactly who they are, and who try to hold on to a sense of themselves within the wider eye of terror. They reject most forms of demonic interference, and are not overly fond of the meddling of the Chaos Gods, and actively distrust those who have strayed too far to the influence of the Eye. This is why you do not find many members of the other God-loving Chaos Legions in their ranks. This serves two purposes. The first is that it keeps the Death Guard, Emperor's Children, World Eaters, and Thousand Sons relatively clean-cut in what they are and who they are loyal to, which gives Chaos players the opportunity to have lots of options. It also does not muddy the waters of the Black Legion, who are supposed to, and what they are supposed to be about. It is hard to gauge who wants what or who holds the power in the Black Legion when Typhus, Ahriman, and other Marines who are on a level with Abaddon in terms of power, and they are all in the same force lore-wise, right? So if you had Typhus and Khan and Ahriman in the Black Legion specifically, I know Ahriman's allied to him, but he's not part of the Black Legion, right? If you have them as part of the Black Legion, all of a sudden, why do we need Abaddon, right? These guys are just as powerful, and they've got the gods backing as well. So, you know, and when I say the gods backing, I don't mean they've been given gifts like Abaddon has. I mean they are literally powered by one of the Chaos Gods. If Typhus and Abaddon actually fought, it would be a toss-up. You'd have to roll a d6, and a 1, 2, and 3 Abaddon wins, 4, 5, 6 Typhus wins. That's how close it would be. So having multiple people of that ilk in the same Black Legion wouldn't really work. Which is another strength of the Black Legion. Now, going back to those numbers before, I'm fully aware that it is nonsensical what Games Workshop do with numbers, and to come out and say that the Black Legion has 10 times the numbers of the Word Bearers has never really sat well with me. But what it does do quite well is show you that maybe not all of the people in the Black Legion are true die-hard Space Marines. Some of them will be vat-grown, some of them will be coming from demonculabras, things like that, who have been, you know, speedily processed and made into Marines. I would say of the actual first-class Marines, the Black Legion has around, you'd say around 300 to 400,000, which is still a lot. That's still a lot of Marines. But the fact that they have millions in there probably speaks to the fact that they have a lot of Marines who aren't quite Marines, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, moving onwards, the bad. So the bad, and a jumping off point from our last point, let me ask you something. You know, YouTuber to viewer, I'm going to ask you a question. What is the goal of the Black Legion? What do they want? If you said to unseat the Emperor and destroy the Imperium, well, you're correct. Here is a better question, though. Why? What actually happens if they succeed? Chaos wins, sure. The very force that the Black Legion want to stay away from for the sake of their own power. So, what's the point? There is a confused meandering on what the Black Legion actually want and need. If you want a strong villain in your fiction, they need a strongly defined thing that they are striving for. The two key parts of any narrative are the protagonist and the antagonist. Which is what it is. They should both be able to answer two things. Number one, what are they after? And number two, what is the complication stopping them from getting what they are after? If you cannot answer these two questions clearly and in a way that will engage the audience, then I'm sorry, but your story is not going to grab a human audience or make them care. That may seem like a wide sweeping statement, but it's true. I was once a writer who wanted to break certain rules and things like that, like I knew better, but these are simple facts. Every book you have ever liked answered these two questions clearly, succinctly, and well in the planning stage of those novels. The Black Legion, frankly, only barely answers the second question, but their answers to both are a confusing mess that doesn't really put the thing forward at all. Ironically, one of the main points of the Black Legion being an issue is the fact that their opponents and the Imperium, are, for the most part, kind of evil themselves. Games Workshop have done such a good job telling everybody how borderline and sometimes over the line evil the Imperium actually is. Well, if that is what your good guys look like, what the hell are the bad guys up to? Instead of leaning into this grey area, Games Workshop have plastered a moustache-twirling villain tag on the Black Legion. In nearly every instance, they do dickhead things for dickhead reasons. There is such a thing as being stupid evil, however. The Black Legion are at their best when chasing worldly needs and power. They're at their best when empire building. This is what made the Legion of the ADB books so engaging. You could sense why they needed fresh resources, arms, ammo, gene seed, slaves, and to wipe away the stain of Horus from their honour. You can understand those goals. When Abaddon wipes out another world just because it gives him a fuzzy feeling inside, it just comes across as a lame way to get heat on the bad guys. In wrestling, for instance, it would be termed cheap heat, like the bad wrestler turning up to a place and insulting the town he's in. It's lowbrow, cheap, and hardly advances any kind of narrative. When the Imperium is already bad, however, you kind of paint yourself into this corner, unfortunately. And lastly, yes, the dreaded plot armor. We will be going into more of this in Abaddon's video. Games Workshop need a villain, and it is incredibly annoying when an author tells you that a character is unstoppable and gives them a lot of nonsense wins for no reason. It also sucks when no matter how many times they screw up, they seemingly get a pass because the writers don't have another villain to give you and aren't smart enough to build them up in a way that actually makes sense. This literally happens in the Horus Heresy, by the way. When Sigismund is about to kill Abaddon at the Siege of Terra, Abaddon is actually teleported away at the final second. I'm not even fucking kidding you. A writer was that brazen about the plot armor of Abaddon and his dudes to the point that I still think he wrote that as an inside joke, despite it being a serious moment that made me cringe hard whilst reading it. Black Legion need honest wins for honest reasons. Show us how badass they are. Don't just tell us how badass they are and expect us to buy your ancient shitty Chaos models. Or at least they were till the latest update anyway. The most egregious form of this was the 13 Black Crusades. No, just silly. The fact that Games Workshop figured out how stupid they were in that they were making Abaddon look by the 13th Crusade, only then to tell us, what a joke, he was actually winning all along. No, seriously, just smacks of plot armor desperation. In truth, though, I can't think of another way for them to get out of it beyond leaning into it as a joke at this point. That's how hard of a corner they painted themselves into. So, that's all well and good, all this moaning and stuff, but how would I change them? What would I go about? What would I do? Well, let's get into it. So the Horus Heresy era Lunar Wolves and Sons of Horus would only have a few changes, and they are all to do with Horus himself, who is getting his own video later on anyway. So not much needs to be gone over here that will actively affect the Black Legion at all later on. In 40k, however, oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah, these guys are a bit of a mess, and they're your main villains. The two things we need to figure out are as follows. 1. We need the Black Legion to be after something. What do they want? And number 2, we need to move the Black Legion forwards and strip them of their plot armor. I'm not going to change the 13th Black Crusade, as it's like saying the Horus Heresy never happened, which would just be nonsensical, right, at this point. It's too big of an event in the lore just to change. I'm here to provide solutions to the current lore, not bad fanfiction. So, I would let Abaddon actually have a clean win by annihilating Cadia. The bureaucracy and general sluggishness of the Imperium finally comes back to bite it, as not enough forces get there to lock down the zone in time. The Great Rift occurs, Chaos wins. Job done, Abaddon has a clean win, where he does not get beaten up by a woman and an old man. Go and figure, right? So, Cadia happens, Cadia gets destroyed, that's what happens, okay? Yes, the Imperium can be heroic in defeat, I'm not saying they can't, but in general, they lose, right? The war's over, they've lost. So, secondly, in my lore, the Black Legion are a material legion. I will write Abaddon kind of like Big Boss in Metal Gear Solid. Bet you didn't see that one coming. One of the main reasons the Horus Heresy even happened was that the Astartes kind of knew they were going to be replaced or discarded when the fighting was done. And they wanted to rule the empire they'd conquered, right? A lot of them were like, why are the High Lords of Terror all men and not Astartes? That was a huge thing for them. A huge reason why the Horus Heresy even happened. Was that all the Marines were like, what, we're not going to have a place in our new empire? What? You know? Thunder Warriors call back anyone? That's what I love about the Thunder Warriors lore. It finally comes back to bite the Emperor in the end. He tries to do it again. He tries to pull the same thing again with the Astartes. And they don't trust him. And they turn on him. They say, yeah, go fuck yourself. We're not doing that. Right? I'm not sure he was actually going to annihilate all the Astartes, but I have a funny feeling that they were going to be annihilated. And I also have a funny feeling that the Emperor knew the Horus Heresy was going to happen and thought this would be a great way to wipe this slate clean and get rid of all the Astartes, or at least the ones that I can't really trust, you know? So, let's move on. The Black Legion embodies this. They don't want to destroy the Imperium in my lore. They don't want to destroy the Imperium. No, they want to rule the Imperium. Abaddon actually wants to sit in the big chair and do what Horus could not. He also actually sees the rot at the heart of the Imperium and is here, in his own mind at least, to set the record straight and to lead humanity into a new golden age of domination of the galaxy through constant warfare. This is the main reason he tells the Chaos Gods to suck a fat one. He won't end up like Horus. He won't end up like his father. And I know this is hinted at in the current lore, but it's not really there. We don't even know what Abaddon really wants. He just wants to destroy everything. Why? Who knows? Who knows, right? As such, the Black Legion, in my lore, are a material force. A conquering army that needs supplies, recruits, and wars to fight. You see, the catch is, Abaddon will never stop fighting. He needs there to be only war. See what I did there? He needs there to be only war to satiate himself and his legion. He never wants a galaxy where his men do not have a place. If there is peace, then the reason for his legion's existence goes out the window. As such, the great lie he tells himself and his men is that they have a place in the time of plenty he wishes to bring about. They simply don't, and that's why the time of plenty he wants to bring about will never happen. It's the great irony of Abaddon. 40k is best when it is functioning with dark irony, and the dark irony of my Abaddon is that he wants people to be at peace. He wants to fight on and be a hero. What he doesn't realise is the future he's bringing about is one of constant war, only war, and the laughter of thirsting gods. Yeah? Abaddon should be 40k. He should be a walking personification of 40k. And what it is. In reality, all he is bringing about is an age of endless warfare, and in truth, he already has won, because he is living in a time of ceaseless war by his own choosing, and his empire, by the way, is growing. Yes, you heard. The Black Legion is not a warband in this lore, it is a conquering force. All of the space around the Eye of Terror is theirs to command. It is from here that they strive and break out from, battering the Space Wolves, Blood Angels, and any other forces that sit on the doorstep of the Despoiler's empire. I will call this empire the Reforged Empire, or the Empire Reforged, as it's just a cool name and gets my point across. Tellingly though, Abaddon jokingly calls it Nova Imperia in High Gothic, mainly to get under the skin of his enemies, but also to show you he is here to replace the Emperor, not to destroy everything. He allies with Ahriman, for instance, to find a way to power the Astronomicon without the Emperor. He does all of these plans to show you he has a theory for what comes next when he wins. Because he's not a fucking retard, right? He doesn't just want to destroy things because he's a man-child. No, he wants to rule. And he has a fucking plan to rule as well. He's got a plan in his head. He knows what he's doing. Right? By the way, remember when I said I wouldn't change the 13 Black Crusades? That's true. Right? The thing is, the 13th Black Crusade happens, but in my lore, it's just called the Black Crusade. There's only one Black Crusade, and he fucking wins. All of the things that happened before this, he sends his lieutenants. So the Gothic War, all these other wars that are setting things up for him, right? He sends other characters that we build up in the lore from the Black Legion. So, you know, guys who are the main. So the Black Legion should have its own version of people like, you know, Cato Sicarius and Sigismund and all these other amazing dudes. It should have those guys, right? It should have those guys going out there and doing their own thing. And one of the other things that I would actually use is from the Night Lord's novel, and it's a man called Decimus, who is hinted at the end of the Night Lord's novel as being this amazing Astartes who's going to set the record straight and kind of lead the Night Lord's Legion. That will come into this as well. Like he'll be somebody who's vying for control of the Black Legion, right? So that's what we have, right? We have Abaddon doesn't return. He's this legendary figure who everybody loves in Chaos, but he doesn't return until the Black Crusade happens. The Great Crusade. The Black Crusade. It happens. Cadia falls at the end of the 41st millennium. The prophesied return of Abaddon has come back. He's united the people of the Eye of Terror, and now he's coming for you and on your marbles, right? So, Abaddon has a definite end goal. And what's more, you can actually root for the guy. Are you sick of the Imperium and its bullshit hypocrisy? Well, Abaddon is here, and is actually a viable alternative if all you want to do is smash heads and keep your people safe. The lands of Abaddon are actually kind of like the lands of Caesar's Legion in Fallout New Vegas. There's a really cool line when Cass, who is a character in Fallout New Vegas, who loves the NCR, which is kind of like their America, right? The Democratic Republic, whatever. She says, look, as much as I hate to admit it, any trading caravan that goes into Caesar's lands, because Caesar's the big bad of the setting, any trading caravan that goes into his lands is safe as houses. Because no one will fuck with him. No one fucks with the Black Legion. Are you having trouble with pirates? Not in Abaddon's lands, you're not. Trouble with Eldar? Drakari? Nope. You're too close into the Eye of Terror, and they won't fuck with Chaos. Orcs? Nah. 500,000 traitor marines can turn that back at any point. Tyranids? They will just... The Black Legion will just force sorcerers to throw demons at the problem whilst evacuating you somewhere else. Don't get me wrong, Abaddon's worlds are not paradises, but because it's a smaller empire, he is much quicker to react to threats, and this should fly in contrast to the Imperium though, as when Abaddon takes a world, guess what? Nothing really changes. That's right, if you live in a nice Imperial world that's like a paradise and Abaddon turns up, nothing's really going to change. You'll just do some blood orgies over the weekend, sort of a thing. But nothing's going to change, because he needs your taxes. The only thing that does is that their tithe taxes go down, because the empire they're serving is much smaller. And their safety from the outside threats goes up, because the people who are protecting them have a much smaller landmass to go and try and protect. It's a seductive deal that leads to many worlds actively voting to join Abaddon before he even invades. How cool would that be? His empire gets all the way to the Baal section of space, so it gets all the way to the Blood Angels before finally it's halted in its tracks by Dante and the return of Sanguinius in this lore, or at least the return of him as a spirit. Fenris is even swallowed up by his empire, thanks to the shenanigans of Magnus. So, Magnus isn't working for Abaddon, by the way. His goals just coincided with Abaddon's. So all of those things conspired to make the Space Wolves basically not lose their homeworld, but have it ravaged, and it's now behind enemy lines, right? Which makes the Space Wolves actively pirates behind enemy lines. You know, like raiding Space Vikings. Go fucking figure. Jesus. Anyway. What's next up in the lore that I would do for the Black Legion going into 10th edition? The Maelstrom. That's right. Abaddon has bypassed the Blood Angels, said, fuck you then, see you later. He's bypassed that. He's taken all of the nice parts around Baal and left Baal to its own devices. And now he's going for Blackheart. That's right, Abaddon and Blackheart are going to throw down to see who the big bad boy is in 10th edition, which gives the Imperium time to claw back some wins. Right? So, as all these things are going on, that's when we start bringing back some loyalist Primarchs, and the tide of Abaddon's conquests are slowed to the point that he has this massive empire, sure, but we're now in the eternal war phase of the conflict, right? That's what I would do with the Black Legion. What do you guys think? Do you think I've gone too far with this stuff? Do you think I've given him too much stuff? I don't. If you're going to have a big bad, he needs to be a big bad. You can't just have a big bad and be like, he's there to destroy the Imperium. Why? Why would he want to destroy the Imperium? He wants to succeed where his father failed. His father didn't want to destroy the Imperium. He wanted to supplant the Emperor. And what's more, here's the thing. Horus would have ended the human race because he was controlled by the Chaos Gods, who in the end will turn on each other and destroy themselves. Abaddon isn't, because he realises just what Horus went wrong with. And so he's kept the Chaos forces at arm's length. I want Chaos people to be able to look at Abaddon and go, do you know what? If he was on the Golden Throne, and we could keep the Astronomicon, I don't know why the Imperial people don't just buy into that. But then you would have a lot of Imperial people going, fuck that shit, that guy's an asshole, and, you know, he's going to lead us down the same path to damnation that Horus did, blah, 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 right? Brilliant stuff. It leads to discussion, it leads to passion, it leads to people being like, I'd want people to make certain memes. I don't really like meme culture, but certain memes are fine, like, you know, like Abaddon for president or something. That'd be amazing. I'd love that, right? Anyway, that's what I would do. What do you guys think? Put it in the comment section down below. I will be back tomorrow with some more Hobby Nightmares. Love you long time. See you later. Have a good one. Bye.